Hi everyone, today we're going to be going over the best ARs in Rainbow Six Siege in tier list format, and unfortunately today this is just going to be ARs, because there's really just not enough time in one video to rank every single gun in Rainbow Six Siege, and not enough room on the tier list. But if you guys do want to see another tier list, like an SMG tier list or a pistol tier list, maybe even an LMG tier list, make sure you go drop a comment and let me know what you want to see. And as always, don't forget to hit like and subscribe. That stuff really helps me out. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank my thumbnail artist, Bully Hunter, for the crazy thumbnail today. I don't know if you guys have seen it. I mean, you probably have because you clicked on this video. But isn't that so cool? Now, let's start off the tier list. For the S tier, well, yeah, no, let's do S to F. We usually do F to S, don't we? We'll start off in the S tier this time. Okay, in the S tier, the first gun, as you might have seen by the thumbnail, is the F2. Though this gun has recently received significant nerfs, it's still one of the most powerful guns on attack, just by the two most important stats when it comes to a gun's usability and effectiveness, right? The insane fire rate and insane damage. I don't want to call the damage insane, but the fire rate is really what brings this gun apart from the rest. Next up, the AK-12. This gun is statistically the best gun on attack right now, and it always has been the best gun on attack. But it just really hasn't gotten too much play because of Fuse is not a great operator in competitive play. But now that we're seeing Ace, we're seeing the AK-12 get a lot more play, and it's definitely working its way into the meta on attack. And you still get the option for the ACOG, the 30-round mag, high damage, high mag capacity. It's a great gun overall, and there's a little bit of recoil, but I wouldn't call it too much to handle. Next up on this list, I'm going to go ahead and put Zofia's M762 AR up there. Okay, this thing is a pretty powerful weapon. We're probably looking at above average damage stats with about an average fire rate. The only thing about this gun that wouldn't make it S tier is the recoil. The recoil on this gun is a little bit hard to handle. Not to the point where if you build the gun like the angled foregrip and an ACOG, that would be too much recoil. But if you slap a vertical foregrip and an ACOG on there, you shouldn't be having too many problems with the recoil as long as you practice it. And the M762 has access to the ACOG, which is another huge part of making a gun strong on attack. I guess with the new season, it's a 2x, but still, high magnification optics are very helpful in making a gun strong on attack. Next up, we're going to be throwing Jackal's C7E AR up there. This gun is a pretty powerful weapon, and especially combined with Jackal's kit, and I know this isn't an operator video, so we're just talking about rifles here specifically, but this gun really complements Jackal's utility. There's no recoil on this thing. There's barely any recoil. I think I run this with an angled foregrip and a magnified optic, and I have no problems controlling the recoil on it whatsoever, which makes it really good for wallbanging after you get those scans with Jackal's utility. But this gun has some of the highest damage stats on attack and an incredibly fast fire rate, and combined with that no recoil like I mentioned earlier, this is a top tier weapon. Okay, moving on, we got Ash's R4C. This is down to the A list, by the way. Now, the reason why I didn't throw Ash's R4C up in the S tier list is just because this gun got its ACOG taken away, which is a pretty bad nerf. Especially for a fragger like Ash, who's supposed to be in the building getting kills quickly in the round. The ACOG nerf was a very significant nerf to the R4C, and even with the new 1.5x and 2x sights, Ash still has no magnified optic on the R4C, making it a pretty challenging gun to use in long-range engagements. But this gun still definitely will rank in the A tier list, just because of, its above average stats. It has a fast fire rate, high damage, it's easy to control, 30-round mag. Okay, next up, we'll have the L85A2, which is Sledge and Thatcher's AR. Let me find this thing. Here we go. Okay, the L85 has been a staple of ARs in Rainbow Six Siege for a while. Now, this gun is usually thought of as an average gun, but the reason I decided to put it in A tier is because it is so controllable. And it does have a high damage stat. I guess not all of its stats are just average, but the combination of the easy controllability with the vertical foregrip, the compensator and the ACOG makes this gun really, really powerful. Well, I guess he doesn't have the ACOG anymore, Well, actually, he might. I'm not sure about that, but I know he has a magnified optic. And this gun, just with all those 4 things together, the controllability, the mag capacity, and the high damage stat, make this gun incredible on attack. We're gonna get Lion's V308, okay? This gun isn't always thought about when we think of the best ARs in Siege, especially just because it's Lion. Lion isn't played anymore. He got really, really nerfed out of the meta, so we don't think of Lion as a super powerful operator anymore, but Lion's AR, the V308, has some incredible stats. It has an average fire rate, but a high damage stat, plus that 50-round magazine, which makes it great for pre-firing, laying down, suppressing fire, whatever you want to do with that 50-round magazine. I definitely think this gun will rank in the A tier. Plus, it's relatively controllable, as long as you're not running ACOG, suppressor, and angled foregrip. I don't know why you would do that. Some people do things like that. I don't understand why, but as long as you set this gun up like a normal person, you shouldn't be running into any problems with this recoil. Next up, we will get Capiteo's Para 308. Now, this might be a little more of a controversial gun to throw up here, but I think that this gun is underrated. Now, I sort of question myself saying that, because this gun still has insane statistics, but I'm right here, I'm thinking about the ranked, like the average matchmaking player isn't picking Capiteo for his gun. They're usually picking him for his utility. But Capiteo's gun, and that's not a problem, Capiteo has really great utility as well. But this gun, despite not having an above average fire rate, it has an above average damage statistic with the magnified optic coming in Shadow Legacy, plus the 30-round mag. And another thing, one of the biggest things about the guns that I've put up here so far, this gun has no recoil. It is an absolute laser beam. We're going to be moving on to the B tier now, and I'm going to start it off with Jaeger's 416 rifle, okay? Now, we got to remember that Jaeger does technically have an assault rifle, and I definitely think it's fair to classify this AR as a B tier, okay? It's about average compared to the rest of the ARs, but since this thing's on defense, it really sets it apart from all the other SMGs. And this thing, I don't know, I'd say B is probably slightly above average. I'd say this is a pretty average gun overall, but just because it's on defense, I will be placing it in the B tier instead of the C tier. Next up, we got the G36 on Ash. Okay, now this gun performs worse than the R4C up here in the A tier in almost every category by quite a bit. Plus, it's not very controllable, and the major issue with the G36 is its reload speed. This thing takes so long to reload, it's insane. But the reason that this is not in the C tier again, similarly to Jaeger's gun, is that it has the ACOG and all those magnified optics this season, right? The R4C does not have that. Next up, we're gonna have Gridlock's F90. Now, Gridlock is similar to Lion. She just doesn't see too much play in the matchmaking ranked area. But this gun is still statistically above average, with an above average fire rate and above average damage. Plus, it's very controllable, and you can take the vertical foregrip on it to make it even more controllable. And the 30-round mag, this is just a great AR overall. And I definitely think if Gridlock was not a 3 armor and incredibly hard to maneuver with on attack, she would be much more of more of a picked operator who has an easier time getting kills. It's just, she's so limited by her slow movement speed. Buck's C8 AR in here, okay? Sorry for that picture. It's kind of scuffed. That's fine, though. Buck's C8 has an above-average damage stat with an above-average fire rate, but unfortunately the recoil on this thing is one of the things that limits it most. The high fire rate definitely makes it a little bit harder to control the recoil on this thing, especially if you're taking a magnified optic like the ACOG or the 2X. I think Buck doesn't have an ACOG anymore. In the new Shadow Legacy season, he only has access to the 1.5x sight. But still, the recoil on the 1.5x is more controllable than the ACOG, but it's challenging to control regardless, okay? Moving on, we got Maverick's M4. Now, statistically, this thing compares to the R4C almost identically. A little bit slower of a fire rate. I think it has 1 more damage than the R4C, okay? But the reason that this thing is not with the R4C in the A tier is because it has really, really high recoil. Now, thankfully for me, I really only take 1x sights, and I end up playing a lot of Maverick in ranked. but I only use 1x sights, which makes Maverick a little bit more controllable. But using an ACOG and an angled foregrip, which you really need on this gun to get the fast ADS time in those close quarters engagements, you're not going to be able to control this gun unless you really practice it. This gun bounces all over the place from left to right, which is kind of recoil you're not super able to compensate for with pulling your mouse in one direction because it's not predictable. Next up in the B tier, we're gonna have Habanos Type 89. Okay, this gun is statistically above average in almost every way. Faster fire rate than almost every gun we have here so far, maybe with the exception of Buck and Ash right here. But the recoil on this thing is pretty hard to manage, especially with an ACOG and an angled. If you take the ACOG vertical, you might have an easier time. But the number one thing that makes this gun B rather than A or S is the low mag capacity. We're gonna move on to the C tier here, okay? For the C tier, I will be starting off with Thatcher's AR-33. Okay, the AR-33 is definitely not a very good weapon. Okay, it does not have high damage, as it has an average damage statistic, okay, with, actually no, I think it has below average. Yeah, it has a below average damage stat with an about average fire rate, even though it is faster than the L85, and this gun is only available on Thatcher right now, which Thatcher has access to the L85 up here and the AR-33. But a lot of people will take this gun over the L85 because of the fire rate. But the damage on this gun, I think these two guns, I think this gun has a slightly lower time to kill than this one. Obviously without headshots. But this gun still does have access to those magnified optics, and it is controllable, but it has a 25 round mag, which can definitely limit you in a lot of situations. But I will definitely be ranking this gun in the C tier. It's just not great. It's moving on to Thermite, okay? We have Thermite's 5.56 XI here. Okay, now, I think that this gun would have ranked higher in this list. I'm going to go back on this, okay? I'm going to put this in the A tier. Alright, now that I'm thinking about this, now that I'm talking myself through this, Thermite's gun has few caveats except for the recoil, okay? You have the 30 round mag. This thing still has access to the ACOG. Okay, if this was in last season, I think it was Steel Wave. If I was in last season, this gun would be in the C tier. You should not be moving that in the C tier, okay? But since this gun is still one of the few guns that has access to the ACOG and is still as powerful as it is with the average fire rate but above average damage and is more controllable than most guns we have down here, I'm going to put this in the A tier. Next for the C tier, because remember we are still down here, I'm going to have to put the AUG A2. Okay, now Wamai does have access to this gun, which is the reason why it's not in D tier, because this gun is not good, okay? But since Wamai has access to this thing, and it is an AR on defense, which is definitely statistically above average compared to most SMGs on defense, I'm going to be placing this in the C tier, okay? The only reason that it's not higher, why I don't think this gun is higher, because it has below average fire rate with a slightly below average damage. Okay, this gun it just doesn't feel good, right? And one of those things that makes it feel bad, okay, is the way the characters in the game hold the gun. Okay, when you have the AUG in your hand as an operator in Siege, it blocks out a good portion of your screen. Okay, and another thing that limits this gun is just not being able to customize the foregrip. I have a feeling if this gun had access to the angled foregrip, it would be a lot more viable in competitive Siege. And next up, I'm going to be putting the Commando 5.56 in here. Okay, this is another one of IQ's choices. I think only IQ has access to this gun, that's true. This gun has never really been that great. I just think people were picking this before over the AUG and over the G8. Now, the G8 this season has worked its way into the meta, and if I do end up, if you guys go into the description, smack the like and subscribe button, I will probably make an LMG tier list video next. The Commando, okay, this thing's just not great. It has below average fire rate. It has a 650 fire rate, I'm pretty sure, or 649. It's a weird fire rate number. I don't know why it's like that, and I don't know why that bothers me. But low damage, high damage. I think it's got a higher than average damage with a low fire rate, and this thing's really hard to control. Okay, I've always struggled controlling this gun. Maybe I just haven't set it up correctly, or maybe I'm just a weird person, but this gun has never felt like a B or A tier gun to me. That should conclude our C tier, okay? In the D tier, I'm going to start off with Nomad's ARX, okay? this gun is average, alright? Average fire rate, average damage, alright? It's controllable, I'll give it that, it is controllable, but the 20-round mag just limits it so much on Nomad, especially when you're trying to pre-fire people who've been knocked by your air jabs, and just pre-firing in general in Siege is such an important thing to be able to do. Next up, I'm going to be putting Finka's Spear 308 in here. Okay, this gun is just terrible, okay? It feels good to shoot, alright? I will give it that. It's a fun gun to use. And let's be honest, guns in this game are mostly preference, okay? And this tier list is mainly a recommendation, okay? If you prefer the AR-33 over the L85 on Thatcher, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to break this down in an objective way where we can look at the recoil and the fire rate and the damage stats and compare them all together. Plus the somewhat subjective feel of these guns to me, okay? But the Spear 308 has low damage, low fire rate, and pretty high recoil. I guess that's on Finka, so she can always mitigate the recoil with her ability. Alright, now we're going to be moving on to the E tier list, okay? I'm going to be putting Nomad's AK in here. Now, I'm sorry to you Nomad mains, but Nomad's guns are both pretty terrible, but her utility is so strong, which is really a really good thing to balance her kit here, because she would be OP if she had an A-tier gun plus A-tier utility, right? Nomad's AK, 40-round mag, which is the one thing it has going for it, below average damage, really, really high recoil. Okay, on this thing, there's a ton of recoil, incredibly slow reload speed, plus you can't have access to an angled or vertical foregrip, which is one of the other things that limits these two weapons. Now, moving on to the F tier, we're gonna have to put Blackbeard's Scar, or I think it's called a Mark 17, it should be, yep. And then the AR-1550, which is Mavericks. This is classified as an AR in game currently, okay? That's the only reason I'll probably include this on the DMR tier list if we end up doing one. But these two guns, no bueno, okay? This thing is impossible to use. 10-round mag capacity, okay? This thing has so much recoil if you take an ACOG and an angled foregrip on it, plus only 10 rounds. Okay, maybe you should be able to spam this thing, maybe give it 20 rounds, but the recoil combined with, I think you have to hit 3 shots on somebody to kill with this thing, which is just too much for a DMR, especially with only 10 rounds. And then I'm sure you guys all understand why this Blackbeard AR is down here, okay? You can't control this thing. The recoil on this gun is so insane, plus this gun has the lowest fire rate on attack, okay? This gun is horrible when it comes to fire rate and controllability, plus only a 20-round mag, okay? And the only thing that this gun has going for it is the damage. This thing ranks pretty high in the damage stat, and I think it'll down in 3 to 4 shots depending on the range. But this gun is just not good, especially on an operator where their utility is basically their gun on Blackbeard. This thing is just not doing it, okay? If you take the plus the ADS time, forgot to mention that the ADS time on this gun is so bad with the Blackbeard shield equipped. Guys, that will be concluding our tier list video today. I'd like to take the time again to thank Bully Hunter for the crazy thumbnail. That was a really cool piece of art. And guys, if you haven't stopped by the stream already and you're watching this video, I would really appreciate it if you took the time out of your day just to go stop at my Twitch channel. I'll probably be live shortly after this video uploads, and just drop a follow, just come hang out, guys. I really love getting to meet you guys who stop by from the YouTube channel, and it really makes my day when you guys come over to the Twitch or just leave a comment on the YouTube and say, this video helped me. That's why I make these videos, so I can try to help you guys out. Hope you enjoyed the video. As always, I hope you learned something, and peace out.